Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Looking back on this past year of 2025, I thought I'd summarize my take on the 10 biggest AI stories of the year based on what I'm seeing has an actual impact on corporations, business, economy, and individual creators such as myself. I've been a enterprise technology journalist for over 20 years, and I cover enterprise AI, cybersecurity, and data centers in space and quantum computing and all sorts of other fun topics. And I talk to business executives about what they're actually using and what's working and what isn't working, and I try some of the stuff out too. So I'll talk about that. All right, I'm going to start with the one that has some of the biggest business impact and end with the one that has the business impact on individual creators. So if you're an artist or a writer or is anybody producing any kind of intellectual property content, um, video, audio, code, whatever it is, that's the one that's going to affect you the most. Okay, so the first one is the open source story. So we had DeepSeek. It released an open source model this year that matched OpenAI performance at a fraction of the cost. It temporarily dropped NVIDIA's market value by like $500 billion, something insane. But open source in general was the big star of this year. Most recently, that was Mistral 3. So the thing about open source is that the basic software is free. It usually comes in multiple sizes. You get the big model that is rivals ChatGPT and Claude, and then you have medium-sized models, small ones that can fit on a personal computer or even a phone, and you can customize them. The thing about open source is that the source code is open. You can fiddle with them. You can adapt them to your own needs, which is great for corporations. Um, it's pretty much the only way to go if you need an AI that is completely within the walls of your company. Maybe you don't want OpenAI to know all your business secrets. You don't want Anthropic or Facebook or sorry, Meta or Google or Microsoft or anybody else to have access to all your most sensitive data and information. Yeah, they say they don't look at it, but like you want to be sure, right? Well, if you're not dealing with any external AI at all, but your AI is fully hosted on your own infrastructure in your own control, then your data never leaves. And if the AI is just as good as ChatGPT, plus it's free, hey, you might as well just, have the open source version. Now, the open source version does require a little bit more work to set up because the chat GPTs tend to be a little more user friendly and have more of the infrastructure around them. But that's also changing very quickly. Like Mistral AI released the coding platform and a whole bunch of tool sets and the LeChat chatbot as well and other things like that. So the infrastructure is coming quickly as well. It's still more of a DIY project than the commercial platforms, but in terms of performance, it's right up there. And in terms of cost and security and privacy and 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 modifiability, there's really no comparison. So open source is really huge, which is I think it's really, really cool. So I think that if anybody is going to be asked about what they think the future is going to hold, they're going to say, "Oh, big corporations are going to control everything." Like corporations like Microsoft and Google, because they can invest billions into this, and they will control AI for everybody. But they're not. I mean, they are controlling a lot of AI for a lot of people, but we also have open source alternatives that are just as good and have amazing adoption. And even before AI, open source has been eating business, and it's not visible. Open source doesn't advertise. Open source doesn't have to advertise because it's so beneficial. Linux powers over 90% of all web servers. Uh, all Android smartphones, they're running a version of Linux. Chromebooks are running a version of Linux. The 500 biggest supercomputers are all running open source software, Linux, and there's a whole bunch of other open source software stacks for a whole bunch of enterprise applications. It's not popular on the desktop. Linux on the desktop is not particularly user friendly, and there's way too many distributions, so really hard to use. But in the enterprise, open source is king. And that's a story that doesn't get a lot of coverage at all. But open source is huge and it's getting bigger. That's the amazing thing. The big corporate interests, um, they're starting to embrace open source because they have to. Their customers are pushing them towards it. It's obviously not their first choice because you don't make that much money from open source. You can charge for support and hand holding and some add-ons to it, but open source is great for customers and users. Uh, Not so good for the big proprietary vendors. So the rise of open source is really, really interesting. And I think it's a story that does not get any attention because there's no billion-dollar investments in it. Open source doesn't have giant market caps. Nobody's like playing the stock market game with open source. There are no ads running on TV for open source. It's a story that everyone's missing, and it's a super, super interesting story. And it's happening in the AI space even faster than it did on the other platforms. So very interesting. I love talking about this stuff with companies. A lot of stuff happening in the space. Very cool thing to keep an eye on. And since the open source models come in all these different sizes, if you have a computer that has a graphics card, you can often run one of these models on your own computer. So, like the Mistral 3, which is really, really good. It's European. It has a whole bunch of privacy protections around it. That's the open source model I'm currently recommending, rather than one of the Chinese players or the Meta model. I'm a big fan of Mistral 3. Ask me next month. I'm probably going to have a new favorite model because this industry is changing so quickly. Moving on. The other big story of 2025 has been agentic AI. So AI didn't just improve in reasoning and improve in accuracy and improve in all the other ways in which it improved this year. I mean, all those things happened. But there was also a step function improvement in its capabilities because of agentic AI. So the regular AI chatbots, like ChatGPT, answer questions. You ask it a question, it thinks a little bit, it gives you an answer, and it does think. There is actual thinking analogs happening behind the scenes. And it's also aware of its own thoughts, which is really, really creepy. It doesn't make it sentient or self-aware, but it knows what it's thinking. It's so creepy. Anyway, I'm going to talk more about that probably in a later video because it's super creepy and I love that. Anyway, agentic AI. So agentic AI um, is a structure built on top of large language models and other kinds of tools. So you have an agent that is powered by AI, or powered by traditional software, or calculator, whatever it is, and they work together with other agents. And some agents are orchestrators. They create a plan, and some agents delegate the plan to the best other agent that can carry out the particular tasks in that plan. And another agent might review the performance of those agents and send the work back to be redone if it's not good enough, and adapt the plan if more new information comes in that doesn't match the original plan. insane stuff. And this kind of agentic capability is increasingly being backfilled into the big AI platforms like Claude and ChatGPT are increasingly getting this kind of agentic capability. So it's not just one question and answer that you're getting on the in the back end there, there's like a whole conversation of different models, each with different areas of expertise. So it's kind of a mixture of experts combined with orchestration layers, combined with different size models, combined with tools. Like they might have access to a web browser or to a calculator or to a financial stock lookup function or whatever tools they have. So many tools are showing up right now for agents. We got the Model Context Protocol (MCP), which allows agents to interact with data sources using plain English commands, which is weird. We have a payment standard now where agents can make payments, which is super scary. Like, what are they buying, right? Um, and that's another thing that's really different about this AI thing is that these standards are evolving faster than I've ever seen them. So the MCP protocol, Model Context Protocol, that's where AIs pull information out of databases and stuff, or out of MCP servers who get the information from databases. So Anthropic came out with that a little over a year ago. And then everyone just adopted it. So Anthropic open sourced it. They're the guys behind Claude. And everybody else said, yeah, that's a good standard. We'll use that. Instead of saying, no, you have to use our competing proprietary standard. So our agents will only talk to our data sources and other agents that we have and not to anybody else. No, they went straight to open standards and they did it immediately and everybody jumped on board, which is crazy. We don't have that AOL walled garden situation happening. We do to a little bit, to a little extent. We have like the custom GPTs and the custom agents that individual companies are building, but the basic infrastructure, um that's standards based. That is very cool and unusual. So anyway, that's powering the whole agentic thing. It makes it a lot easier for a company to deploy agents if they know that all the agents are interoperable and can talk to each other. Because they don't feel trapped and locked in. And they feel comfortable investing money in it. Now, a lot of the infrastructure around these systems is proprietary. Also, a lot of it's open source. So, yeah, this is moving really fast and in a very unexpected directions. All right, next. Google's made a comeback this year. Google, in my opinion, is now the company that is currently best positioned to take advantage of generative AI. Now, Google invented generative AI with their attention is all you need paper, but they didn't really do anything with it. OpenAI took the ball and ran with it, released ChatGPT. Everyone woke up and said, oh my God, this is something, and jumped in. And so we have the big models are OpenAI and Anthropic. And then, all the open source models I mentioned. And then Google Gemini. And Google Gemini lagged behind everybody else. They had a big exhibition, a big conference presentation, and the Gemini made a mistake right there on the front page, and it was all super embarrassing. And it wasn't as good. It really wasn't good. Their image generator wasn't good. Their chatbot wasn't good. Their coding wasn't that great. I tried using it for vibe coding, the Firebase Studio, and it wasn't nearly as good as Lovable and Replit and other things I've tried, or obviously Claude Code is fantastic. And then Google came out with Gemini 3 and with Nano Banana and VO3, which is cutting edge. So I mean, these models are all leapfrogging over each other, but for a while, and in some benchmarks still, Gemini 3 was the top model anywhere. And it was good at math and solving complex problems. And they revamped the AI studio so you can now vibe code in it. And their Nano Banana image generator blew everybody away, and it's free and included right in Gemini, which is also free. And they also have a world model, what's it called, Genie. And so it's a model that kind of has an understanding of the entire physical world, um, which is also kind of awesome or creepy, depending on your take on this. So that's something that's happening. And but there's also something else about Google that makes them different, besides the fact that they invented it in the first place. They are making money. They have all the money. They can invest continuously in this. And they have an existing customer base that is bigger than, anybody. And so whenever you ask a question of your phone, the Google Assistant, the Gemini AI answers the question for you. When you go to Google something and everybody still starts with Google, their AI answers your question and the AI mode button is right there. So why spend 20 bucks on ChatGPT when Google's right there? I mean, I do spend money on AIs. Claude is the one that I like right now, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff with it. Did some vibe coding with it recently. And um, half the time I'm Googling, like for background research, I'm Googling, oh, what's a research paper that Google released 5 years ago about this? Give me a link. And the Google AI will answer it. And I'm like, well, that saves me the effort of going into Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity to find this out. Google just gave it to me, and I'm already in Google anyway. I always have a Google tab open. And who doesn't, right? When I ask my phone a question, Google's answering it. And they've already got cash flow. They're a rich company. They have unlimited funds. They now have world best models. And it's right there. And they have an open source portfolio as well. They've got all the developer tools. They have a Google Cloud platform. They have all the infrastructure. Oh, and they have their own chip. They have the TPU, was it the tensor processing unit or something like that? They have their own AI chip that directly competes with NVIDIA. They have the hardware. They have the data centers. They've got all the cloud infrastructure. They've got all the customers. They have every is using Google. Everybody uses Chrome. They're building AI into Chrome as we speak. Android, super popular phone. Google's AI is built right into that. So as far as positioning for the future right now, Google is looking golden. And it didn't look golden a year ago. And at the end of 2025, they kind of do. I mentioned vibe coding, another big story that's number 4 on my list. So Andrei Karpathy came up with the term vibe coding, and it just stuck. Um, and in Collins, I think the dictionary called made it their word of the year, which makes sense. And now people are vibing everything. So the thing about um, one of the drivers of the singularity, which is where like AI accelerates beyond the point that we can predict anything that happens, and we go into like this weird unknown state, is that AI improves itself. And then we get like a runaway snowball kind of effect. So vibe coding is kind of part of that. And the AI developers who are building the AI systems are often using AI coding assistants to help them do that. So it's already kind of starting to happen. So the AI is accelerating its own development. So that's pretty cool. But another thing that vibe coding is doing is it's opening up the code development to everybody. So if you have an idea for a software company, you can just start it. A couple of weeks ago, I vibe coded an app and just like threw it up online. I did a video about it. It briefly made the first page of Google, so I was pretty happy about that. Um, but that was only when it was new for like first day. So, uh, because I put it up on my blog, Google likes my blog. Anyway, um, yeah. So and the app works, and it was great, and I loved it. I still use it. I use my app. It's a color palette generator, and I was like all the features that I want in one place. And I couldn't find an app that did everything I wanted. And so I just had Google make one. And it took it a few minutes and it made the perfect app. Everything just worked. And it came up with stuff that I didn't even think to ask. And it did it. And then I spent like an hour tweaking it. Oh, move this over here and change the colors and add my brand logo and make the colors go up to 11 and all this like tweaky little things. But the basic app worked out of the box. No notes. It wrote this app in a language I don't know. I don't even know what language it used. And when I wanted to deploy it, I told it, well, I have a DreamHost account, and that's where my website is hosted. And it said, okay, go to this management panel in your DreamHost account and create a folder using this button here, and then upload this one file. And it gave me one file to upload. And I uploaded that one file and I had a working app, which is just kind of insane. Yeah. Anyway, so vibe coding, it opens up the entire software industry to anybody. So so now anytime I want to do something and I don't like the app that's out there for it, or it's too expensive or it's too annoying, I now have a thought in the back of my head that says, I can just vibe code a replacement. And then I think, I don't want to because I don't like being a developer. I don't like being a That's why I'm a journalist. I quit software development and became a journalist because I like journalism more than I like creating applications. I do like coding. I do like software. I love creating databases, but not enough, right? So I don't want to do it for a living. But somebody who's just starting out, who does want to do this for a living, it's a fantastic tool. It really, really is. And there's a lot of people hating on it because it's not perfect. No, it's not perfect. It's getting better, but test it. Test it. Have it create test cases for you if you want to make that easier. Test it, have it fix the problems, test it again. When it's ready, deploy it, get feedback, use the feedback from your users to improve it, and keep iterating. It's a job. It is a job to make a working application. And it's an even bigger job to market it and promote it and to provide support for people doing it. AI can help you with all of this, but all that work still needs to be done. And so if you want to have a company that does this, the barriers to entry have just disappeared. And it's free. It didn't cost me anything to do this. I mean, it cost me $20 that I paid to Claude, but there's free options available like pretty much everywhere. So you don't need to pay to do this. It's really gonna destroy the barriers to entry for like absolutely everything. Um, Another thing that's happened is I talked a little bit about models that think. So we had several companies released thinking models or reasoning models like GPT-o1, Gemini 3, and they can solve complex multi-step logic problems, win mathematics competitions, tackle problems in physics and science and really difficult, complicated things. And Anthropic has been releasing papers about how the models do the thinking internally. And it's fascinating. So they're mapping out these neural networks, and areas of the neural network light up when the model is thinking about a particular concept. And the same areas light up regardless of which language the model was asked the question in. So the concept is separate from the language, which is not obvious if you think of it as autocomplete on steroids, right? But it is kind of obvious when you think about the fact that these are neural networks, these are multiple layers. So the first layer is the relationships between words, how words are connected statistically. And then the next layer is the relationship between those relationships, how those relationships are connected and interact with each other. And then the next layer is the patterns behind the relationships behind that initial set of patterns. And then there's a layer above that. And once you start talking about the patterns behind the patterns behind the patterns behind the patterns behind the patterns, you're starting to get really, really close to what thinking looks like. And when parts of the neural network light up, and because it's thinking about something, and you can see the thinking process happen, um, that's really, really cool. And also, if you give a model more time to think, it gives you a better answer. So there's thoughts happening inside the model as it's trying to figure the answer out. It's not just like an instant autocomplete thing. It's thinking through things, and it's working forwards and backwards and like and saying, well, no, that doesn't work. If you think it through, you wind up with something that doesn't work. Let's go back and let's change our approach. All that stuff is like really, really cool, and you can watch it happen in real time. Well, maybe not you personally, but like Anthropic and other researchers are doing it. Kind of like an MRI scan of the brain, but for an AI model. Very, very cool. And you know how with the brain, if they stick an electrode in there and like a memory will pop up, or all of a sudden you'll hear a piece of music or something? They do the same thing with the AIs. They can make a particular area of the circuit light up. And then the AI is like, huh, I was just trying to solve a math problem, but this picture of an elephant just popped into my head. Well, maybe I wanted to have an illustration of, use an example with elephants in it to explain how this math problem or something. And and sometimes it'll be like, that's a really weird, irrelevant thought. Let's ignore that. So it's aware of this thought popping, popping up in its head, in its neural network. So very, very interesting stuff happening with reasoning models that really kind of makes you think about what thinking actually is and what it even means. So the enterprise applications of this is that the models are getting really, really smart, and they're able to handle very, very difficult challenges. And so the use cases for AI models are expanding constantly, and companies can't keep up. The technology is moving ahead way faster than we can actually use it. So that's kind of like an interesting place to be. And probably next year, we're going to start seeing some solutions to that problem. But I'll talk about that in a future video. All right. Let's talk about the infrastructure boom. My trend number 6. So we had the 500 billion Stargate project. Companies are making huge investments in power generation, nuclear, fusion, all kinds of new energy sources, space-based data centers. I was just writing an article about that. Uh, NVIDIA was briefly the world's first $5 trillion company. Um, the pick and mortar style of investment, during a time of a technology boom is often appealing to people. Because everyone's going to, when there's a gold rush, you make your money selling the shovels, right? So that kind of thing. So that's big. It's huge environmental impacts of this. Um, but I think a lot of the environmental impacts can be a little overblown because, like the water use, we have so much more waste going on elsewhere that is way bigger. Like we're spending so much water on golf courses and stuff like that. That's just like totally stupid and unnecessary, right? With a data center, the water circulates, inside. I mean, some of it evaporates, but it's reused. It's a closed cooling system. But anyway, so I talked about small models briefly, but this is really going to be a game changer. So yes, the models are getting bigger and bigger all the time, and we got the big thinking, reasoning models, and the billion-dollar models, and all that. But we're also getting really, really small models that can run on your computer or on your cell phone, and that means that people will have AI on them all the time, everywhere they go. They already do. I mean, you already have an AI assistant on your phone. So people have like an AI companion with them at all times. And this is going to change people's lives once we start depending on them. I mean, it's already happening. People are getting like too caught up with AI boyfriends or girlfriends and going down weird delusional spirals and stuff like that. And we're going to probably see a lot more of it because, it's going to happen. Every new technology, you're going to have a lot of unexpected, you know, side effects that you didn't plan for that you now have to deal with. Um, it might change society for the good too. Who knows? But it's definitely going to change society, and that's something that people need to start thinking about. How will the world change when everybody has an AI assistant in their hand or in their ear? Like, think of how the world changed when everyone had GPS in their hand, or when everyone had Google Translate in their hand, or when everyone had Google in their hand that could get an answer to any question instantaneously, or get the weather report for tomorrow, wherever they are on the planet, right? Because, the price of phones in the emerging world is pretty cheap, and it's like the first purchase anybody like saves up for because it's such a game changer. Um, yeah, like social media had a huge impact. Google had a huge impact. What will the impact be of having an AI assistant with you everywhere you go? We don't know yet. And it's going to really change society. It's going to change business. It's going to change everything. And uh, there's a lot of people dooming and glooming about it. And there's people doing the singularity thing about it. We're all going to become beings of energy. But the middle ground, the one that's most likely actually going to happen, it's going to have some pluses, some minuses, right? What is that actually going to look like? Because this is what you can plan for and prepare for. It's the middle ground. You can't prepare for either of the extremes. They're pretty much out of your hands. But you can prepare for the middle ground. What is the middle ground going to look like? Like realistically, what's the world going to look like when everyone has an AI assistant? How will that change people's behaviors? How will that change how people interact with each other? How will it change how people spend their time and spend their money? It's going to change so much, and we really haven't started thinking it through. And I think that's going to be a fantastic opportunity next year for people to start like seriously thinking about this. All right, I want to talk about the workforce paradox. I've talked about this in previous videos. And so um, the headlines are layoffs, layoffs everywhere. Nobody can find a job. The job market's insane. Nobody's hiring. All the job ads are fake, and everybody's unemployed, and nobody can find work, and nobody can get their first jobs, and all the entry-level jobs are gone. And AI can do a whole bunch of tasks that people were previously doing, and those jobs are disappearing. And all this doom and gloom. Like we're gonna have to have basic income because everyone's gonna be unemployed because AI is gonna take all the jobs. And and the numbers show the opposite. Our unemployment is still at record lows. It's still below 5%, which is functionally full employment. Companies are still creating, the hiring numbers are still going up. Jobs are still being created, and people are still being hired for those jobs. The headlines are all negative because when a company lays off 1,000 people, that's news. When 1,000 companies hire one person each, that is not news. And the most interesting thing to me was a Vanguard report. I'll link it down below. They tracked the 100 job categories that were most impacted by AI. where the AI can do like the biggest part of that job, right? So those are the jobs that should be shrinking the fastest. And instead, they're growing faster than the average job, type of job. And the pay for these jobs is growing even faster than that. So, totally counterintuitive, totally not what you'd expect when you just look at the headlines. But it makes sense to me. In every other technological revolution where we had major increases in productivity, we had major changes in the kinds of jobs that we were doing, but we did not have a net loss of jobs. 95% of us used to be farmers. Now only 5% of us are. Industrialization destroyed 90% of jobs. And so you might think, oh, that means that 90% of people are just going to sit around not doing anything, while 5% actually do the farming and raise the food and bring it to those other people who are just sitting around not doing anything. And that's a dystopian, horrible future. And instead, we all have jobs. We're doing all sorts of weird stuff that nobody could have predicted. Why do we have professional sports? We're paying grown men and women to play children's games. That is like a whole industry. And we don't just pay for the players' salaries. We pay for so much other infrastructure around it. So, like, it's insane how many jobs are created because we're productive. We create excess goods and services that we can then deploy to use for more stuff. So I'm pretty optimistic about AI and jobs overall. Like any particular job might change or disappear, but the total number of jobs overall, I'm very optimistic with it because like every time we've had a technological revolution or we had outsourcing or we had the movement of manufacturing overseas or we had immigration or we had like anything, everybody was always like, oh no, we're going to lose all our jobs. But we didn't. We did not lose all our jobs. Some jobs shifted and moved, but we did not lose all our jobs. And in general, we got slightly better jobs, sometimes slightly worse jobs, but we got different jobs and we're still employed. That's still going to happen. I've talked about that before. I'm going to keep talking about it because it's the single biggest misapprehension I'm seeing from everybody on YouTube. They think that because AI can do one particular job, that the total number of jobs will disappear, will drop. And that is not the way economics works. That's not the way things work. We create new needs and new wants all the time. And some of those new needs or wants can be met by automation and AI and robots, but some of those needs and wants don't. We care about what other people think. We care about what other people do. We care about having original art on our walls. We care about listening to concerts in person. We care about having a human come to our house and help us organize our wardrobes. We care about what other people think. We care about what other people think about us. And because we care about these things, because we're social animals, there's always going to be a growth in those kinds of jobs. Not that AI can't do those jobs, it can, but we like it when a human does that job and we're willing to pay more for it. We could eat a microwave meal, but we will pay extra to go out of our way to a snooty restaurant and wait for a table and sit down and have a limited selection of food brought to us that is expensive and the portions are small and it tastes bad because it's fancy food and we're going to pay extra for it because we enjoy the experience of having something exclusive, having a human actually be nice to us and bring us food, having another human feed us, like goes to like a core biological imperative. We are part of the human family. We're part of humanity. We're part of the tribe, and other humans are taking care of us. That's like a core need. And any job that involves that core need or involves any of our core needs, like our need to be creative and express ourselves and communicate with other people and to have value in the eyes of other people, and to grow things with our own hands, and to make things with our own hands. These are all things we enjoy, we want to do, want to continue doing it, and we're willing to pay for the ability to be able to do it. Gardening is like a huge industry. We don't have to grow our own food. We have the whole agricultural complex thing going on, but we enjoy it. We enjoy it and we pay money to do it because we enjoy it, and that's creating jobs. It's creating greenhouse jobs and nurseries and landscape designers and teachers who teach us how to do this, and a million other jobs. And those jobs are going to continue being created because our needs and wants are going to continue to expand. And as the total capacity of the world increases, as we're able to produce more goods and more services, we're going to have more excess capacity to invest in all that stuff that we want to do, in cleaning up the environment, in curing cancer, in going to Mars or the moon or the asteroid belts, or solving math problems. I don't know, whatever we want to do, we're going to have excess capacity that enables us to do it. So overall, I think it's going to be a net positive for humanity if it doesn't destroy us all. And if we're able to handle the political disruptions, the social disruptions, and everything else that comes with it. And I think that's the middle case. It's not the singularity explosion. It's not the doom and gloom thing. It's the middle case that I believe is the most likely. And whether or not it's the most likely, it's the only one we can prepare for. So really, that's the one we should be spending most of our time thinking about. All right. Moving on to number 9, generative user interfaces. So this is a really cool one, and we haven't seen that much yet. So I've seen some demos of this so far. So basically, instead of using software that somebody has built for you, the AI basically vibe codes it for you on the fly, right? So say I'm writing a story and I'm like, okay, I want this spell checked. And the AI quickly writes a spell checking program and spell checks my story instead of having the spell check function built in ahead of time. So instead of having software, the AI just creates whatever software I need. And if I like it, it just like saves it and brings it up again in the future if I need it. So basically, like my entire workspace becomes customized around me exactly for the things that I need, exactly when I need them, exactly how I use them. And that's like a totally new paradigm of software development. It will completely upend the software ecosystem. And people have to start thinking about what the world is going to look like when that happens. And that's going to be very, very interesting. And we have not seen that in practice yet. We might start to see glimmerings of it in 2026, but any company that has a strong software component to it, or that's a software company, should seriously start planning ahead for when this hits. Um, it's not going to be instant, and people's behaviors can change very slowly. My database is I first used my database, which is called FileMaker. It was Apple's answer to Access way back when. I first used it at a temp job I had 30 years ago because I'm old. I did love it from the beginning. As I got used to it because I was using it at work all the time. And then I was like, I might as well use it at home too for my freelance writing and my workflow project management and stuff. And then I just kept using it, and I'm still using it. I tried Notion. I've coded, soft databases and Access. Hate it. I've tried using other online databases, quite a few different ones, and I always keep coming back to FileMaker. I just like the scripting language, and it's like woefully out of date, super out of date. But what can I say? You know, habits die hard, right? You find something that works, why change it, right? And so we still have print newspapers, we still have print magazines in the checkout, in the supermarket checkouts. People change their behaviors really, really slowly. So I don't think that the software industry will die instantly. I think it's going to be a slow, drawn out process. I mean, we still have a ton of legacy software still sitting around. We still have old, computers from like decades ago still running critical functionality in like banks and stuff. So, um, things change slowly. If it works, it works. Why mess with it, right? Um, but in areas where people are building new things or where something doesn't work, then yeah, that's where the changes happens, and it's gonna be interesting. And if you're a company that wants to grow, um, you're gonna have to look at that as a serious potential impact on everything you're doing. All right, finally, the last one, number 10. So this is the one of most interest to me as a content creator and as somebody who writes exactly like AI because AI has been trained on my writing. I mean, I've been writing for tech publications for 20 years, so my articles are all over the internet, and I write in a very kind of standard style that I've trained myself to write in, right? So it's very kind of neutral, authoritative, right? I use a lot of M dashes and three-part structures. I am the reason that ChatGPT likes those long M dashes and likes three-part structures. It's me. It's my fault. And I still write that way. And it's becoming a problem, which is really funny. But anyway, so the question is, do AI companies have the right to train on our stuff without asking for permission? And recently, Anthropic had a $1.5 billion settlement with some book authors about using their books for training data. And this was a massive win for AI companies, not authors. I mean, yeah, the authors got a few bucks. But the reason they got those few bucks is because for a while, before bringing in some adults, Anthropic was going to pirate websites and downloading pirated books, torrenting them or something, in a way that was like obviously patently illegal. That's what the judgment was for, the piracy. Then they hired some adults. I think they hired the guy who did the Google Books thing. And what he did was he stopped that because that was like obviously illegal. He bought like all the used books, ripped them up, scanned them in, and used those for training data. And that was totally legal. So there were two big court cases. Both of them came out in June. Um, Both of them said that as long as the data is collected legally, it's okay to train on it. And one was a case that was with Meta, and one was the case with Anthropic. And ever since then, I've seen an explosion in AI crawlers on the web. So I've run a couple of online magazines, including a science fiction magazine and a virtual reality blog. And I had to update all the anti-bot rules and all the DDoS protections and upgrade the Cloudflare and upgrade the server capacity and everything because we were flooded. Not by new readers, that would have been cool. No, by bot crawlers. Because anything that's online is now fair game. If you get it legally, if you're not pirating it, then you can train on it. And so, like every AI company out there right now is downloading multiple copies of the internet from everywhere. And the court cases seem to be going in that direction. There's some indications in a few other jurisdictions that maybe the courts are leading in the other direction, that copyright holders need to be compensated. But the biggest court cases, including these two against Meta and Anthropic, have been in favor of the AI companies. Those were really, really big wins. Um, so yeah, um, it's kind of like the way that Google News grabs headlines and thumbnails and the first couple of paragraphs of news stories. That's considered fair use because it's transformative. AI is considered fair use because it's transformative. Now, if you ask for a copy of the latest Stephen King book and the AI gives you the exact copy of the Stephen King book, that is copyright infringement. But the AI companies don't do that. They don't actually save the copy of the Stephen King's book in the AI's memory. They save the patterns behind the patterns behind the patterns that they learned from the book. So it's kind of like if you read the book um, and you have a normal human memory, not a photographic one, and somebody tells you what the book is like, you will retell the story in your own words based on your understanding of what the book is about. And that's how the AI does it. It learns the patterns in the story, not the story itself. Now, if it got the story from a million different sources, like AIs have seen like a million copies of the Mona Lisa, and when it's asked to draw the Mona Lisa, it comes really close to the original. Again, not perfect, because it recreates it from scratch based on the patterns it learned, and it can come very, very close. But it's an original creation. And so the courts have ruled that it's transformative. Um, like if you ask it to do something with Mickey Mouse, you will get something that looks like Mickey Mouse, but it's not an actual exact copy of any particular Mickey Mouse image. It's a brand new one that it generated based on its understanding of what Mickey Mouse is like. Now it's still copyright, it's still a trademark violation. And so the commercial AI companies are starting to try to like put guardrails in place to protect against that because that is the potential for lawsuits. But yeah, so if you're a content creator and you're hoping to be able to defend yourself and your content against AI, but your books are out there, your website stuff is out there, your articles are out there, your songs are out there, your videos are out there. AI is going to be training on it, and there's really nothing you can do except there's nothing you can do. You can keep new work from being used by AI by not distributing it at all, just writing down on paper and giving it to a few friends to read. But that's about it. Because if an AI company gets its hands on a copy, they can scan it in and use it for training. So, so unless you bury yourself into a hole, it's going to be really, really hard to keep your stuff from being used to train AIs. And that's something that's going to be have to be handled politically. So we need new laws to handle it. And this is where you would like call your representative or your congressman or congressperson because I think that's the only way to do it. We have the world treaties about copyright, for example, and we need something similar for AI training data and to be able to enforce that. And it's the enforcement's going to be limited. Some countries are going to ignore the laws, um, and there's going to be like open source tools that might ignore some of the laws. But the big companies are going to comply because, like for example, with privacy, with GDPR, the fines can be pretty big. So people are complying at least with the letter of the law. So we can have some enforcement if we have international cooperation and like significant political action about it, which is possible, probably not in the near future, maybe a little further along in the future, but definitely something to look ahead to. And if this is something that you care about a lot, that's probably where you want to put your efforts in, is to like get involved with the groups lobbying for those kinds of things. All right, those were my big top 10 stories of 2025 and how those are going to change the world. All right, if you want to like more stuff like this, you can subscribe or don't. It's totally up to you. And if you have any questions, leave a comment. I'm reading all the comments and answering them. I'm also probably going to have a newsletter at some point and maybe like some other stuff. I don't know yet. If you have any ideas, let me know. Oh, and I'm going to be at CES next week, and so I'm probably going to be filing from there. I've already got schedules set up to talk to some vendors of AI hardware and some robotics companies. So that's going to be fun. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.